let's go ahead and get into our class breakdown. The last time that we're going to break down the class of 2025, it's a little bit bittersweet.
It's like graduation day.
Yeah.
It might be a final exam for someone later in the show, this lady right here. But you sit there and you're like, this is the finish line. We've been talking about these guys basically since last November. And, you know, to turn the page, and I mean, there's still Justice Terry in the marathon on Friday, but for a lot of these guys, this is the last time they're going to show up on one of the Kaylee Mansell slides on Before the Hedges.
I feel like we need to cue the graduation music that you hear at every ceremony. All right, let's go ahead and do it. We'll start with the quarterbacks. Now, this is the first time in a few classes that there have been two quarterbacks. Four-star Ryan Montgomery, who's the number 12 quarterback overall out of Findlay, Ohio. And we did the commitment dates as well, which his is going to be April 17th, 2024. And then one of Georgia's latest commits, the three-star Hezekiah Millender, who's at Clark Central, moved from Arizona to Georgia to get that SEC recognition. It came late, but now the Dogs have two quarterbacks to compete.
Two different styles here. Ryan Montgomery, I would say, would be the high floor passer. His older brother plays at Ohio State. I love it, Kaylee, when he committed to Georgia. He said for the next 3 to 5 years, which totally understood. He spoke the language of a Georgia quarterback, wants to follow the route that Carson Beck did. And then the other guy now, you look at this guy, Hezekiah Millender Hale. Like he asked me this week, and when we write about him, to make hyphen Hale is his last name. But this guy's a former Boise State commit. Georgia pulled the flip. He moved to Georgia from Arizona because he wanted SEC exposure. He got it. Now, he's a 4-7 guy. He's more of a, I'm going to extend the play type quarterback. Maybe like what Pat Mahomes does without all the sidearm throws and the arm angle slot throws. But he's a guy that predicates on using his legs to buy time, to look downfield, to find passing lanes and to find guys open. But he can't wait to be in Athens. He's really excited to be in Athens. The coaches at Clark Central tell me he basically was the leader of their team in like 10 days. Very charismatic, very big play acumen. There's a great story or two about him we'll still get to on the pages of DawgNation.com. But Georgia, for the first time since 2019, they have two quarterbacks in a class.
Let's move on to the running back. Notice how I say running back. RB, the 4-star Bo Walker, who has been committed since October 12th, 2023. He's been very loyal to this team, the number 23 running back overall in the cycle. And keep in mind, this is someone who's won 3 state championships already. He's got that championship mentality, and I do feel like he's going to be one of the vocal leaders within this group.
Yeah, he's definitely, Kaylee, got that dog in him. Obviously, running back with the last name Walker at Georgia, that's already going to draw some kudos and praise. But played at Cedar Grove. He actually transferred. He had to transfer to Raven Gap in Northeast Georgia as a senior to have a senior year because of eligibility rules at Stockbridge. He came back today and signed at Stockbridge High School. And Kaylee, I'm going to tell you, this guy is a kind of a Kirby guy, one of those guys that just has that Georgia mentality. And Kaylee, when he gets, he's really about 5'7 and a half, 5'8", about 205 pounds. When he gets behind that great wall of Georgia and just hides, it is going to be very hard for the backers to find him. He can catch, he can scoot, he's played battle-tested football, and right now he's the only running back in this class. That says to me two things. One, maybe more retention efforts on the current roster. Trevor Etienne will come back potentially next year for one more season, or the Dogs are going to have to get busy in the portal.
Let's move on to the position group that it took me the most time to create this slide. It's the wide receivers. There's 5 in the class of 2025. I definitely think this was the position group that Georgia needed to focus on the most that wasn't at the line of scrimmage, and they definitely delivered with this class. You've got 4-star Thomas Blackshear, 3-star Landon Roldan, 5-star Talon Taylor, the only 5-star receiver Georgia has signed since George Pickens, the 4-star Tyler J. Williams, and 4-star C.J. Wiley, who was a late pickup for the Dogs in this class. But they got exactly what they needed and what the people wanted as well.
Yeah, lots of things here. Let me just pick up. Talon Taylor, you mentioned that part about George Pickens. He commits on my wife's birthday. I'll never forget that commitment right there. C.J. Wiley, probably the most talked about signee in the class. Georgia had to prioritize him. They had to go get him. His parents were both SEC athletes at LSU. His dad went on and played, I believe, 6 seasons in the NFL, including with the Falcons. probably the most slept-on guy in the class, especially the receiver spot, Kaylee, is Tyler J. Williams. He's got an incredible Y with his younger brother. That's a great story. We've written that on the pages of DawgNation.com. Really big, deep threat. He's one of those players that comes up big in big moments. Can't forget Landon Roldan as well, the guy out of Bogart, Georgia. Family grew up dogs. He's got the 4.3 speed. David Pollock told me himself that he has a superhero trait of catching the football, ball skills, finding the football. And then Thomas Blackshear. I believe I made Connor Riley grow a third eye this morning when I was talking to him about Thomas Blackshear, because we were talking and Thomas had told me he's not going to sign this week. He's not an early enrollee. He's going to sign in February. He's not going to have a ceremony yet. And as I was telling Connor that, he's like, yeah, Jeff, he just was announced by Georgia. He did sign, and he's in the class. And I was like, oh, okay. But that's what Thomas Blackshear does. He definitely is a change of direction type guy. I want to say Dylan Bell is a good comparison to Thomas Blackshear. And Kaylee, we're going to talk about Thomas Blackshear later in this program. But he actually went off last week in the state playoffs against Prince Avenue Christian.
Yeah, we will view that once we get to Mansell's details. But let's go ahead and take a look at our tight ends on the year. It's going to be Elias Williams, who's the #1 tight end overall, and then the 4-star Ethan Barbour. Elias Williams has been committed to the Dogs since April 8th of 2023. That is such a long time. Him and Ethan Barbour both have been in this class for a while, and just goes to show that once again Todd Hartley continues to deliver, and they're two very different tight ends from what I've seen.
Yeah, take a bow, Todd Hartley. He gets his work done early. He turns it in early. He had both of his guys in 2025, already committed in 2023. Very wide range of opinion here. I want to start on Barbour. He might be overall game, mentality, worker aspect. He's probably one of my favorite guys in this class. I love what Milton calls him. They call him, now listen, it's late night. I hope the kids aren't listening too crazy. But the Milton guys call him their ASS kicker. Because you need somebody to make a play. You need somebody to beat the man in front of you. You need somebody to get a big catch. You need somebody to run wildcat. Just put Ethan in. He's going to kick the tail of the guy in front of him. Wide variance, Kaylee, of scouting opinion on him. For example, like 24/7 Sports, the composite has him as the #11 tight end in the country. ESPN has him as the #1 tight end in the country. And Dog fans are going to have a hard time figuring out which one of these two are going to make a bigger impact. The other guy, 6'7", Elias Williams, he is a monster, freakazoid, 3-time All-State basketball player, 6'7", 240. You just can't imagine what Sinclair is going to do to him when he makes him 6'7", 260. Folks, this is not Darnell Washington. Repeat, this is not Darnell Washington. This is just Darnell Washington with maybe more of Lawson Lucky's game right there. Again, I'll stress the movement ability here. 6'7", 240, and he's a 3-time All-State basketball player. This is the stat for stat freaks and stat geeks out there. He had 56 of his 90 career catches this year in a new offense in Camden County.
Well, then how will Georgia use Barbour? What's his tight end comp?
Yeah, I think he's just going to be everything. He's going to be everything that Brock Bowers did. Now, is he going to run a 4.4? No. But he's going to do everything else that Brock Bowers did. And, folks, he's not slow. Don't get me wrong. He's not going to gallop or trot up and down the field. Ethan Barbour can go. This is another story I love about Ethan Barbour. Kaylee, when you watch his highlights every week, the touchdowns are at the back of the highlights every week. He finds his 3 or 4 best blocks, and he puts those at the front of his highlight tape. And he's blocking dudes, and he's doing like the Hulk. Like, really, the coaches at Milton tell me they really worry about him because they're like, oh, man, what a great block. But then he gets so fired up, he's celebrating too much, and he might get a penalty. But what coaches always say, Kaylee, you'd rather have your guy in the red and have him revving on overheat and then have your guy needing to jazz him up, needing him firing up, and get him ready to play.
And we'll check out some of those Ethan Barbour highlights later. We're going to split the offensive line into our offensive tackles first, and then we'll show you our interior offensive linemen. So it's going to be the 4-star Juan Gaston Jr., who's been a commit since August 2nd, the number 17 offensive tackle out of Atlanta, Georgia. And then this is going to be the 3-star Dennis Uzuchukwu. Did I get it that time?
It's pretty good, Kaylee.
It's pretty good every time, but it's never good enough. One of Georgia's latest commits out of Swanee, Georgia, the number 43 offensive tackle.
Kaylee, it's so good I probably wouldn't have you doing burpees or gassers for the pronunciation there. Here's where we start. We're going to try and make our producers very happy here with our timing. Juan Gaston, his dad, played basketball at Georgia Tech. He's about 6'7" and 350 pounds. He's going to change his body a lot in Athens. He's out of Westlake High School. Just look at him. You know, they say words do a lot of justice, but that visual does a lot of justice there as well. That's the guy you want coming out of the locker room, coming off the bus at any level of football. The other guy, Dennis Uzuchukwu. Uzo, Dennis the Menace, great communicator. Kaylee, at one time he was committed to Georgia State. Then he had a silent decommitment, he told me. Started playing football, former Hooper, started playing football, Kaylee, when he was in his sophomore year of high school, started playing offensive line in the junior year of high school, and now he's signed with Georgia.
All right, let's look at our interior offensive lineman for the class of 2025. It's going to be 4-star Cortez Smith, 4-star Dontrell Glover, and 4-star Mason Short.
I'm going to make this pretty simple. A lot of offensive line coaches I know, they say the crazed psychos on your team are your guards. And these three guys, I mean this in the most O-line coach, sweetest way possible. These guys are crazed psychos. Dontrell Glover, Cortez Smith is going to be the center. Reminds you more of Cedric Von Prawn than a crazed psycho. Dontrell Glover actually drew a flag this year, Kaylee, for blocking a man last season, for blocking a man too hard. That's what Boone Williams told me. He was blocking his guy too hard. Mason Short out of Evans High School. Hello, CSRA. Got to get another CSRA dog right there. Massive guy. Was once a tackle. Probably the best player comp I can say for him is he's going to do exactly what Tate Ratledge did for Georgia.
Now let's go ahead and move to the defensive side of the ball. We'll start with our defensive lineman. You've got the 5-star Elijah Griffin, the #1 defensive lineman and also the #3 player in the country nationally out of Savannah, Georgia. And then you've got the 3-star J.J. Hane, who's only been playing football for 2 years. And honestly, I feel like that might work in his favor. That way Georgia can mold him exactly how they want to.
He said on his player parallel on those first class Georgia Social graphics and segments that he's been compared to Trayvon Walker. Now, Kaylee, he's about 6'6", he's about 284, and he's got those movement skills that remind you of a first or second round pick, especially when he gets 3 or 4 years with Travion Scott. Again, this is the young man who comes to the United States in 2022 from Berlin. He played soccer, he played flag football. We've never seen this. And all you can say about Elijah Griffin is probably, without question, the best player in the state of Georgia this year, perhaps the best player in Georgia's class. Georgia offered him, Kaylee, in 2020, before Stetson Bennett started a game for Georgia.
Wow.
Before Georgia won any natties, that's when Georgia offered him. Why they offer him when he was in 8th grade? Because he looked like a 9th grader or a 10th grader they were offering already. He's now 6'6", he's 285, 290 pounds. Kaylee, he just looks different. Like Georgia doesn't have a lot of bodies on the defensive line that look quite like that. I think he's going to make an early impact in Athens.
And there's still a chance that there could be one more name added to that list on Friday. Let's go ahead and take a look at our edges, I see this as the strongest class across the board. You have the 5-star Isaiah Gibson. Georgia held on to him after some light trolling on social media. He's the #1 edge, #9 overall. The 4-star Darren Ikenabon, who's the #9 defensive lineman. And then you've got the 4-star Chase Linton, who's the #11 edge. We got the chance to watch that commitment. And when you look at the numbers, the stars, the national ranks, all within the top 200.
Isaiah Gibson, Kaylee, I think he's another guy that will be like Michael Williams. He's already 6'5", 270. I know he's rated as an edge. I love the way he plays the edge position right now, Kaylee, because he has such an edge out on the field. Like, he is almost like 2 tweets of a whistle away from a fight at all times on the football field. That's what you want. That's that Jalen Carter mentality. Folks do not want to block him. Folks do not want to deal with him for a whole game. I can't imagine what the Georgia D-line will look like when you have to think about doubling Mr. Griffin or doubling Mr. Terry or doubling Isaiah Gibson at certain times of the game. And, again, he's a guy that I think will play a lot of 5-tech early. He's a guy that I think can play up and down the line. These other 2 guys, Kaylee, they're more like gazelles, especially Chase Linton. That's your pass rusher. DeJour, he has some of that Jalen Walker-type pass rush acumen to his game. And then Darren Akinabong, I think he's got the length is there is so amazing. This is another family from Nigeria. They sent another Bulldog defender to Georgia. He's out of New Jersey. Kaylee, what strikes me about Darren is he went to Georgia ready to commit. He committed to Georgia on G-Day, and then he was done. You didn't hear his name associated with any other school. He's like J.J. Hane. J.J. Hane said this week that as soon as he got the papers from Georgia, he signed them and sent them right back because he didn't want to wait for Georgia to change their mind. That's what Darren is like. You love those guys. Like, listen, everybody loves the drama. People get engagement. People get clicks. People get page views out of them. But Darren Akinabong was another one of those low-drama recruits.
All right, let's look at the linebackers. They strike again. They get the #1 linebacker overall, the 5-star Zayden Walker, who went to Sly County, and then the 3-star linebacker A.J. Crua out of Marietta, Georgia, who was a flip from UNC this year. So Georgia ends the cycle with 2 linebackers.
Crua's great. He's played running back for his team. I think he had 10 touchdowns this year. Zayden Walker's really interesting, Kaylee, because they put him out at receiver this year a lot this year. He caught like 27 catches, played a lot of offense. Now, he's a pass rusher, Kaylee, like Jalen Walker type game. We mentioned him earlier with Chase Linton. That's what Zayden Walker is. He's lost a little bit of weight. Now, he's about 6'2 and a half, 6'3, now maybe about 215 because he's played so much receiver. But he's a guy that, like his coach told me this story this week. They went and played Johnson County in the state semifinals last year. Sly had a really good team last year. This year was a rebuilding team. And they're sitting in the locker room. And Darren Alford, the head coach at Sly County, came over to him and he said, you know what? This is Johnson County. You know Herschel Walker? You hear that name? He played here. Like he might have sat in this very locker room. And Darren said he just saw something come over Zayden when he knew that he was going to play somewhere where some historical football players have played. And he got jacked up. He played one of his best games of his career because he wanted to do things at a high level, on the same field, in the same part of the state where Herschel Walker did him. And you know you love that story being a Georgia Bulldog.
All right, let's look at our quarterbacks for this class. We're going to have the 4-star Dominic Kelly, who reclassified recently, was a 2026, now moves up to 2025, giving Georgia one more quarterback in this class, along with the 4-star Jonte Gilbert, who is the number 18 safety in the class of 2025.
Lots to like here. One of these guys was once committed to Ohio State. Another one of these guys was once committed to Southern Cal. You have Jonte Gilbert here. Again, is he the corner? I don't know, but he really loves Georgia. Georgia and Dante Williams really made a connection with him. They convinced him that he could be a cornerback in Athens. Got a lot of length, Kaylee. If he doesn't work out at corner, he can definitely be a safety or a star or a nickel at Georgia. And then Dominic Kelly, one of the younger players in the class. You mentioned him. He was a reclassification from 2026 to 2025. Another IMG Academy kid.
Yep,
you know,
added to the list.
That IMGA pipeline is still strong with Mr. Kelly.
All right, we've got one more position group for you, and it's going to be the DBs, the 4-star Jalen Morgan out of Rockville, Tennessee, and the 4-star athlete Todd Robinson, number 7 athlete in the class. That's a guy that can really do it all.
Yeah, and one of the things we got to make sure we mention here, there's some, maybe Georgia's a little asleep at the wheel right now, but there's some papers that have not been tweeted out yet officially. I believe Todd Robinson came kind of later this evening. Jalen Morgan, I don't know if his papers are actually in, but he's another jack-of-all-trades safety. Just loved Georgia from the jump. And, you know, Kayla, all I can say about Todd Robinson is he was a Dog of the Week nominee or a Dog of the Week almost every week here on Before the Hedges. Again, played a ton of quarterback at Valdosta. He will be a safety, a star at Georgia. This is one of those guys that Josh Crawford went after immediately when he was hired. Georgia sees him as a future star. Kaylee, he's got really good speed, more speed than most guys might think. And anytime, this is like the perfect recipe for a Kirby Smart DB. Can you have him come from the red clay of GA out of South Georgia? Check. Can you have him play both sides of the ball? Check. Can you have him be a quarterback as well? Check. Todd Robinson checks all the boxes.
Speaking of the boxes, we've got our recruiting snapshot to show you. Some things have changes within the boxes, but there's also still room for other things to change. So now you notice you've got signees. There's 20.